I am 72 years old. Most people think I am finished. They think my life is already over. They think I am weak, poor, and useless. When they look at me, they don't see a man who once took risks, built dreams, and sacrificed everything for his family. They see an old man who walks slowly, wears cheap clothes, and lives in a small rented room. Even my own son thinks that. And that is my fault, because I never told him the truth. For 40 years, I hid it. I hid my success. I hid my money. I hid my strength. At the age of 40, when my friends were buying big houses and expensive cars, I made a different decision. I invested. Everyone told me I was crazy. They said, "You're putting everything into one company? You'll lose it all." Maybe they were right. Maybe I was lucky. But that company grew, year after year, quietly, slowly, powerfully. Today, it sends me $50,000 every single month. $50,000. More than most people earn in a year. But my son doesn't know. My neighbors don't know. My relatives don't know. No one knows. Because I chose silence. I chose to live small. I chose old clothes instead of suits. A small room instead of a big house. A simple phone instead of a smart one. Why? Because I wanted my son to love me, not my money. I wanted him to respect me as a father, not as a wallet. So I pretended to be poor. I pretended to be weak. And slowly, people started believing it, including him. When he got married, I paid quietly. When he needed help, I gave silently, never showing where the money came from, never asking for thanks, never demanding respect. I watched him grow confident, ambitious, proud, maybe too proud. He became successful. He married into a wealthy family, a family that valued money more than character, status more than kindness, power more than honesty. And I stayed invisible until last week, when my phone rang. It was my son. His voice sounded different. Nervous. Careful. "Dad," he said, "my wife's parents want to meet you." I smiled. "That's nice," I replied. "They invited us to dinner," he continued. "Tomorrow night at a very nice place." I could hear it. The fear behind his words. He was worried. Not about me. About how I would look. About how I would be judged. About how I might embarrass him. "Dad," he added softly, "please, I just don't talk about money." I almost laughed. Money. The one thing he thought I didn't have. "I won't," I said. And I meant it. After the call ended, I sat quietly in my room. I looked at my old table. My old chair. My worn-out jacket. 40 years of pretending. 40 years of hiding. And now, a dinner. One table. One night. With people who only respected wealth. I felt something strange in my chest. Not fear. Not anger. Curiosity. I wanted to know, would they see me as a human being? Or just a poor old man? I stood up slowly, walked to the mirror, looked at my tired face, and whispered to myself, "Tomorrow we will find out. Tomorrow we will find out." Those words stayed with me. They followed me as I turned off the small light in my room. They followed me as I lay down on my narrow bed. They followed me even when I closed my eyes. Sleep did not come easily. My mind kept traveling backward, to the days when my son was small, when he used to hold my finger while crossing the street, when he would fall asleep on my chest, when he believed I was the strongest man in the world. Back then, he didn't care about money. He cared about my presence, about my voice, about my promises. Somewhere along the way, that changed. I turned on my side and stared at the cracked ceiling. Was it my fault? Maybe. Maybe by hiding my success, I also hid my value. Maybe by living small, I taught him that I was small. A soft knock came from my neighbor's room. "Old Mr. Lewis. Can't sleep?" he asked quietly. "Not tonight," I replied. He smiled sadly. "Big day tomorrow?" "Yes," I said. "A dinner. With important people." He nodded. "They always judge before they listen." I didn't answer. Because he was right. After he left, I got up and walked to my small desk. I opened the drawer. Inside was a thin folder. My real life. Bank statements. Investment papers. Company reports. Proof of everything I was. I stared at it for a long time. Should I bring it tomorrow? Should I show them? One page would change everything. One signature could silence every insult. But I closed the drawer. No, not yet. I didn't want respect bought by numbers. I wanted respect earned by humanity. I picked up my phone. A message from my son. Dad, please be on time tomorrow. They are very serious people. Serious. About money. About status. About image. Not about hearts. I will, I replied. Then I placed the phone down and whispered into the quiet room. Let them see me as I am. Slowly, very slowly, sleep finally came, and with it, the beginning of a test none of us were ready for. The waiter slowly placed the last dish on the table. The smell of expensive food filled the air, but inside my chest something was burning. My son looked at me and smiled. Dad, he said gently, you don't have to worry about the bill. We'll take care of everything. His words were kind, but they hurt, because in his eyes, I was still that poor old man. I nodded quietly. Thank you, I replied. His wife avoided my eyes. Her mother whispered something to her father. They both looked at me again, from head to toe, judging, measuring, deciding my worth. I pretended not to notice. I picked up my spoon. My hand was shaking, not because of age, because of memories. 40 years ago, I was sitting in a tiny room. No window, no fan, only a broken table and a dream. I had nothing, no support, no family, no money, only belief. Dad? My son called softly. You okay? I came back to the present. Yes, I said. Just thinking. Her father cleared his throat. So, he asked politely, what did you do in your life? The question was simple, but the answer was heavy. I looked at my plate, then at my son, then at everyone. I worked, I said slowly. Silence. No one expected that. Worked where? He asked. In business, I replied. A small laugh escaped his lips. Business? Like shop? Or street selling? My son frowned. Uncle, he warned. But I raised my hand. It's okay, I said. Yes, business. Her mother smiled awkwardly. That's nice, she said. Small businesses are respectable too. Small. Again that word. I felt something break inside. I put down my spoon and looked straight into their eyes. At 40, I said. When everyone told me to give up, I started from zero. No one spoke. I failed 3 times, I continued. Lost everything twice. My son stared at me. You never told me this. I didn't want you to worry, I replied. Outside, rain started falling. Soft, slow, like my memories. I slept in my office, I said, sometimes without food. Her father's smile disappeared. I borrowed money, got cheated, got betrayed, but I never stopped. My voice trembled, not from weakness, from truth. And one day, I succeeded. Everyone leaned forward, waiting, hearing, feeling, but I stopped. I looked at my son and asked quietly, do you really want to know who your father is? The room held its breath, and his answer would change everything. My son looked at me. His eyes were filled with confusion. Dad, he said softly. What do you mean? I took a deep breath. For years, I had hidden everything, not because I was ashamed, because I was afraid. Afraid he would change, afraid he would love my money, not me. I never wanted you to see me differently, I said quietly. I wanted you to respect hard work, not wealth. Her parents exchanged glances. The air felt heavy. I continued. When I finally earned money, I didn't buy big houses. I didn't buy luxury cars. I invested. My son leaned forward. Invested where? In a small technology company, I replied, back when nobody believed in it. Silence. A waiter passed nearby. Even he slowed down. I put everything I had, I said. Every last dollar. If it failed, I would become homeless. Her mother whispered, Oh my God. But it didn't fail, I continued. It grew, slowly, painfully, but surely. My son's voice trembled. Dad, how big? I smiled, not proudly. Sadly, big enough, I said, to take care of generations. Her father swallowed. Are you serious? I nodded. For the last 30 years, I've lived simply. Same clothes, same house, same habits, because money is dangerous. It changes people. My son looked down. Tears dropped on the table. I thought, he whispered, I thought you were struggling. I was, I replied, just not with money. I was struggling with loneliness. That sentence broke him. He looked up. Why didn't you tell me?
Because, I said gently,
I wanted you to choose your wife. For love. Not status. Her parents froze. Their faces turned pale. They finally understood. This dinner was a test, and they were failing it. I slowly reached into my pocket and took out a small card, placed it on the table. The logo shined under the light. Her father recognized it. His hands started shaking. This is... Yes, I said calmly. My company. And then, everything changed. For a few seconds. No one spoke. The card lay on the table, like a silent bomb. Her father stared at it. Then at me, then again at the card. His lips trembled. This company? He whispered. It's worth billions. I nodded slowly. Yes. Her mother suddenly sat back, as if all her strength had disappeared. My God, she murmured. My son was frozen, his mouth slightly open. Dad, he said, is this real? I looked at him. Every single word. He rubbed his eyes, like he was dreaming. I judged you, he said. I thought you were weak. No, I replied softly. I was patient. Silence again. This time, heavier. Her father cleared his throat. Sir, he said nervously. I didn't know. You judged me, I answered calmly. That's normal. People judge by clothes, by watches, by cars, not by hearts. He lowered his head. I'm sorry. I nodded. Apology is good, I said. Change is better. My son suddenly stood up. Dad? His voice broke. I'm ashamed. I reached for his hand. Don't be, I said. Learn. Tears rolled down his face. I thought money meant success. No, I replied. Character means success. Her mother spoke carefully. Then why live so simply? I looked at her. Because luxury is addictive. Once you taste it, you forget humanity. I took a sip of water. My workers, I continued, many of them are poor. If I live like a king, how can I face them? They were silent, ashamed. My son whispered, You're greater than I thought. I smiled sadly. I'm just tired, I said. Tired of pretending. Her father hesitated. Sir, what do you want now? I looked around the table, at every face. I want honesty, I said. From today, no fake respect, no fake smiles, only truth. My son nodded strongly. I promise. But deep inside, I knew this story was not over. Because money reveals people, and soon, their real faces would appear. The dinner ended in silence. Not the peaceful kind. The heavy kind. The kind that presses on your chest. Everyone ate slowly. No one laughed. No one joked. The truth had changed everything. When we stood up to leave, her father suddenly said, Sir, please wait. I turned back. Yes? He walked toward me. His steps were careful, like he was walking on glass. I owe you respect, he said. Not because of money, but because of your values. I looked at him. Respect is shown in behavior, I replied. Not words. He nodded deeply. I understand. Outside, the night was cold. Streetlights painted long shadows. My son walked beside me. Quiet. Too quiet. When we reached the car, he finally spoke. Dad? Yes? I've been thinking. About everything. I opened the door slowly. Thinking is good, I said. Most people don't. We sat inside. The engine started. But he didn't drive. He looked straight ahead. I've been chasing status, he said. Big house, big friends, big life. But I forgot. Who raised me? My heart tightened. Why now, I asked. Why did it take humiliation? He swallowed. Because pain teaches faster. I sighed. That's true. We drove in silence. Halfway home, his phone rang. He checked it. His face changed. Dad, he whispered. It's my wife. I glanced at him. Answer. He did. Hello? A pause. Then his shoulders dropped. What? When? Another pause. Why would they do that? He ended the call. Slowly. What happened? I asked. He hesitated. Her parents, they called some relatives. They're saying that you lied. That this company is fake. That you're manipulating us. I laughed quietly. Of course. Truth is uncomfortable, so people attack it. He clenched the steering wheel. They're planning something. What kind of thing? They want proof. Public proof. I closed my eyes. So soon, I murmured. He looked at me. Dad, are you scared? I opened my eyes. No. I've waited 40 years. For this moment. For people to see who I really am. We reached home, but sleep never came. Because tomorrow, everything would change. The lies, the masks, the relationships, and maybe my son's marriage. After leaving the office, no one spoke. Not me, not my son. Not even the driver. The city lights passed like silent witnesses. My son finally whispered, Dad, why didn't you tell me? I looked at him. Would you respect me more? If I had? He stayed quiet. At home, I went straight to my old room. The one with cracked walls. No luxury. No decorations. Only memories. I opened the wooden drawer. Inside were files, receipts, investment papers, old contracts, all yellow with time. I touched them slowly. 40 years. Every sacrifice. Every missed birthday. Every lonely night. For this moment. At midnight, I called my lawyer. Prepare everything. What kind of everything? He asked. Public. Legal. Media. Full exposure. He paused. Are you sure? Yes. They humiliated my dignity. Now they will face truth. Next morning, news spread quietly. A rumor first. Poor old man is actually a tycoon. By noon, journalists called. By evening, social media exploded. My photo was everywhere. Before and after. Old clothes. Then business meetings. People were shocked. How did we not know? Why did he hide? Some praised me. Some mocked me. I ignored all. My focus was tomorrow, the big day. At night, my son sat beside me. Dad, I'm sorry. For doubting you. For being ashamed. I held his hand. You weren't ashamed of me. You were afraid. That's human. Tears filled his eyes. I thought money defines value. So did they, I replied. But now you know better. At 3 a.m., my phone buzzed again. Mr. Rahman. I didn't answer. He called 5 times. 10 times. Finally, I picked up. Please, he said. Let's talk privately. No media. No drama. I laughed softly. Too late. You open this door. I'm just walking through it. He sounded desperate. Our family reputation, I cut him off. You didn't care about mine. Silence. Then he whispered, "We'll do anything." Anything. That word echoed. I looked at the ceiling. 40 years of patience had finally reached its limit. "Tomorrow," I said, "you will learn what respect costs." I hung up. Outside, rain started falling. Heavy, like the sky was washing away lies. And tomorrow, the storm would begin. Morning arrived without peace. The rain had stopped. But inside me, the storm was louder than ever. At 7 a.m., my phone vibrated nonstop. Unknown numbers, media houses, business partners, old acquaintances. Everyone suddenly remembered me. I ignored all. I wore my simple white shirt. The same old watch. No brand. No show. Only dignity. My son watched silently. "Dad, today will change everything." I nodded. "Yes, but remember, truth doesn't need decoration." We left for the press hall. Outside, cameras flashed. Lights blinded my eyes. Reporters shouted, "Sir, are you really a billionaire? Why did you pretend to be poor? Is this revenge?" I didn't answer. Not yet. Inside the hall, hundreds waited. Journalists, investors, lawyers, even politicians. In the front row, Mr. Rahman, his wife, his daughter-in-law, my daughter-in-law. They avoided my eyes. Fear sat on their faces. The anchor announced, "Ladies and gentlemen, today we reveal the truth about Mr. Ibrahim Rahman." I walked to the podium, microphone trembling slightly. Not from fear, from emotion. I took a deep breath. 40 years ago, I was a young engineer. I had dreams and responsibilities. I invested every saving while living simply. Photos appeared on screen. Young me, construction sites, old office, first contract. People gasped. I never hid my money. I hid my pride, because respect should come before wealth. Murmurs spread. I continued. When my son invited me to dinner, I wanted to see truth. How people treat those who seem weak. Everyone looked at Rahman. He wiped sweat. They mocked me. They judged me. They insulted my dignity. My voice cracked. But I stayed silent. Because I was learning. Suddenly I turned. "Mr. Rahman, do you remember calling me useless?" The hall froze. He stuttered. I didn't mean..." I raised my hand. "It's okay. You showed your character." Then I dropped the final bomb. All investments, all properties linked to my company are now public. Screens changed. Numbers. Assets. Shares. Billions. People stood up, shocked. Whispers filled the hall. This is real power. This is legacy. Then I said softly, "But money means nothing if hearts are empty." My daughter-in-law began crying. My son held her. Reporters fired questions. "Will you sue them? Will you destroy their business?" I smiled. "No, I will educate." Silence. "I have decided to fund free schools in their name. To teach respect." Some clapped. Some cried. Rahman looked broken. After the conference, he approached me, hands shaking. I was wrong. I begged forgiveness. I looked at him, not with anger, with calm. Forgiveness is not begged. It is earned. I walked away. Outside, sunlight broke through clouds. For the first time in years, I felt light. But the story was far from over, because that night, a secret would surface that no one expected. Even after the press conference, the house felt heavy. My son and I returned quietly. The driver barely spoke. We entered the small living room. The rain had left puddles on the balcony. My daughter-in-law followed silently, holding her coat. My son looked at me, still pale from the morning's events. "Dad, I didn't know you were this strong," he whispered. I smiled faintly. "Strength is quiet," I said. "Most people never notice it until it's too late." He nodded, looking at the floor. Everyone at the conference, they looked terrified. "Yes," I replied. "Not because of me, but because of truth." Outside, the city hummed with normal life. Cars honked, people walked by, birds chirped, but inside the house, a storm lingered. Later in the afternoon, I went to my study, opened the old drawer. Pulled out letters, files, and faded photographs, each one a memory. Every struggle, every sacrifice, every sleepless night. I realized 40 years of silence, pretending to be weak, had finally brought lessons. But the most important lesson? People reveal themselves when they think you are powerless. I had watched my son's in-laws, watched how easily they judged, watched how they smiled at wealth, and ignored humanity. Now, with everything exposed, I wanted to see their real faces. That night, my son called me into the dining room. His wife's parents were already there. The tension was unbearable. I walked in slowly. They froze, the same polite smiles, the same carefully measured gestures, but now they looked smaller, lighter, human. Ibrahim? Mr. Rahman said nervously. I raised my hand. Please, I said calmly. Sit, let's be honest tonight. The air trembled with anticipation. Your daughter, I began, looking at her carefully, chose a man who loves her for her soul, not her family wealth. Remember that. They nodded silently. Then I turned to my son. Tonight, I said, you must see the difference between respect and fear, love and greed, truth and falsehood. My daughter-in-law's mother tried to smile. It faltered. Her father's hands shook slightly. The lesson had begun, and deep inside I knew this was just the first night, the first of many lessons. Because wealth reveals the weak, patience reveals the strong, and truth always wins in the end. As I sat at the head of the table, I realized my life, every sacrifice, every silent struggle, every lonely night, had led to this moment, a moment where respect was earned, not begged, not bought, not feared. And for the first time in decades, I felt completely alive. The night deepened, but sleep was nowhere near. I stayed at the head of the dining table, the dim light casting long shadows on the walls. My son sat beside me, still pale, still trembling slightly from the morning's revelations. His wife leaned on his shoulder, quietly observing. Her parents, once confident, now sat like shadows of themselves, trying to hold on to dignity that had slipped away. I took a deep breath. Let's be honest, I said softly but firmly. Not for the cameras, not for anyone outside. For ourselves. The room fell silent. Even the ticking clock seemed to pause. Then her father spoke, his voice tight. We were wrong. I didn't respond immediately. I wanted him to feel it. The weight of every judgment, every insult, every subtle look of disdain. He should feel it. I treated you as less, he continued. I judged your life, your clothes, your habits. I leaned back slightly, letting the silence stretch. You did, I said finally. And that is human. But now you know better. Her mother whispered, almost under her breath. We thought we were teaching manners, but we were teaching arrogance. A small bitter laugh escaped me. Yes, I said. Arrogance hides behind wealth. Patience hides behind poverty. And truth is in between. My son's eyes glistened. Dad, I see it now, he said. All those times I complained about simple meals, simple clothes. I didn't understand. You understand now, I replied. Good. Outside, the night wind blew softly through the window. I stood up and walked toward the balcony. The city looked calm, peaceful. But I knew it was not calm inside these walls. The Rahman sat stiffly. Their pride had been shaken, their assumptions destroyed. And yet, they had one choice left, humility. I turned back to them. Tomorrow, I said slowly, you will see. Actions speak louder than words. Respect is earned, not demanded. And you will learn it. Before it's too late. Her father's hands clenched into fists. Her mother's shoulders sagged. And my son, he finally held my hand, silent gratitude in his eyes. But as I looked at them, I realized one truth. This was just the beginning. The next challenge would come. And I had to be ready. Because the world doesn't forgive easily. And some people can only be taught through consequences. Tonight I would rest. But tomorrow, everything would change again. The mask would fall completely. The real story would begin. And I was finally ready to lead it. The night passed slowly, but my mind never rested. Even as the city slept, I was planning. Every detail mattered. Every reaction of the Rahman family. Every subtle gesture of my son. I reviewed the events of the previous day in my head. How they looked at me when I revealed the truth. How they judged me. How they feared the exposure. And most importantly, how they tried to hide it. At dawn, I woke early. I walked to the balcony. The morning sun barely touched the horizon. I could see the first buses moving, the streets slowly filling. But I wasn't thinking about the city. I was thinking about them. The people who had judged me so easily. The people who had smiled at what they thought was weakness. They had to see the real cost of their assumptions. I went back inside and sat at my desk, opened my laptop, connected all company accounts, documents, and legal papers. Every number, every contract, every proof of ownership, everything. I wanted them to understand clearly, not by words, by reality. My son entered the room, rubbing his eyes. "Dad," he said softly, "you're really doing this?" "Yes," I replied. "I've waited too long." Patience is not weakness. It is strategy. He nodded slowly, still absorbing the truth. "Are you afraid?" he asked. "Of them?" I chuckled. "No. They fear me, because they cannot judge me now." By 8 a.m., the Rahmans arrived at our home. They tried to act confident. Their steps were measured. Their eyes avoided mine. Her father spoke first. "Good morning, Ibrahim." I smiled slightly. "Good morning. Shall we talk?" he asked. "No," I replied calmly. "Today is not for talking." They exchanged nervous glances. Then I stood up. "Today," I said clearly, "you will see the truth. Every hidden secret, every lie you believed, every assumption you made about me, you will witness reality." Her mother's hand trembled as she held her daughter-in-law's arm. Her father's face was pale. I continued, "My wealth is not just numbers. It is discipline. It is sacrifice. It is patience over decades. And it has nothing to do with arrogance. It has everything to do with character." My son looked at me, admiration clear in his eyes. "This is your lesson," I whispered to him. "To observe carefully. To judge carefully. To respect truth before appearance." Her father stammered, We didn't understand." I raised a hand. "Now you do. But understanding comes too late without action. And actions will decide your dignity from now on." The tension in the room was unbearable. I could see fear, confusion, and disbelief in their eyes. This was just the beginning. But the first cracks had already appeared. And deep inside I knew. Patience, years of silent endurance, and careful planning had finally brought me to this moment. The stage was set. The lesson was ready. And the real test had only just begun. The Rahman family had gathered in the living room. Her father, mother, the uncles, and a few relatives had arrived unexpectedly. The tension was thick, like the air itself was holding its breath. I sat calmly at the head of the table, fingers resting lightly. No anger, no theatrics, just quiet patience. My son stood beside me, still pale from the morning's revelations. His wife tried to smile politely, but it faltered. "Dad," my son whispered, "they're here to challenge you." "Yes," I replied softly, "but they don't know what patience can do." The eldest uncle stepped forward. "Ibrahim, we've reviewed everything. You've misrepresented your life." I looked at him carefully, letting silence stretch. "Misrepresented or simply lived quietly?" He fumbled. We thought you were poor." "Yes," I said. "That illusion served its purpose." His gaze shifted nervously to the others. "You could have told us." "Could have," I replied. "But would it have taught you anything?" Her mother whispered, "We just wanted to protect our daughter." "Yes," I replied calmly. "Protection is important, but so is character. And now character will be revealed." I motioned toward the projector. The room darkened slightly. Documents, contracts, account statements, everything appeared on the wall. Billions, investments, monthly income, company shares. Her father's eyes widened. Her mother gasped. The uncles whispered to each other. My son gripped my hand. This is real, Dad," he said. "Yes," I said. "Everything has always been real." I leaned forward. "Do you understand now?" Her father's voice trembled. "Yes, it's overwhelming." I nodded. "Good. That is the weight of truth. It crushes arrogance and false assumptions." Her mother's eyes filled with tears. We never realized," I continued. "People assume wealth defines value. But wealth is meaningless without integrity. Character is revealed when money does not control behavior." Her father's shoulders slumped. The pride he had worn like armor had crumbled. I turned to my son. "Observe carefully. This is how people behave when confronted with truth. Watch their reactions. Learn their weaknesses. Patience wins where anger fails." The room remained tense. I could see fear, shame, and grudging respect. I stood slowly. From this moment onward, I said clearly, consequences follow dishonesty not through punishment, but through exposure of truth. Her daughter-in-law quietly held her mother's hand, shaken but understanding. Her father finally said, "We acknowledge your patience, power, and wisdom." I nodded. Acknowledgement is not enough. Understanding comes only when actions align with words. Tomorrow, we shall see whether you have truly learned. The first lesson was delivered. And the next would be even more revealing. Because money may show success, but patience and truth reveal strength. And in this room, strength had finally spoken. The morning sun entered through the curtains, but the house felt heavy. The Rahman family had not left. They sat stiffly, absorbing the truth that had hit them like a storm. Her father fidgeted nervously. Her mother held her daughter-in-law's hand tightly. I poured myself tea slowly, deliberately. The silence stretched. Finally, I spoke. Yesterday was a lesson in patience. Today will be a lesson in observation. Her father looked up. Observation, he asked. Yes, I replied. You saw the numbers. You saw the evidence. But did you see me? He blinked. I don't understand. I stood and walked around the table. Most people look at money, status, and appearances. They judge easily. They mock quietly. They assume weakness where they see simplicity. They never expect the truth to be hidden. My son watched, wide-eyed. This is why I never flaunted my wealth. Respect earned under false assumptions is meaningless. Character is revealed through time, patience, and observation. Her mother whispered, We judged you because we saw only poverty. Yes, I said. And you were wrong. Now you must face the consequences of judgment. Her daughter-in-law shifted, whispering to her mother. I turned to the eldest uncle. You questioned me yesterday. You demanded proof. You doubted my integrity. Do you see now what patience can accomplish? He stared at the projector showing my bank statements, investments, and company shares. Everything, he whispered. Everything is real. Yes, I said. And yet wealth alone does not define me. Patience, sacrifice, and silent endurance built character. You must learn this before the world teaches harshly. Her father's hand shook. Her mother's eyes filled with tears. Her uncles avoided my gaze. My son stepped forward. Dad, they're listening now, he whispered. Yes, I said. But listening is not enough. They must understand. Actions must follow acknowledgement. I picked up a folder. Documents, letters, contracts, all arranged carefully. This, I said, is my life. Not for show. Not for vanity. Every struggle, every decision, measured and patient. To reach this moment of truth. Her father's voice broke. I never imagined... No, I said calmly. You never did. Because you judged by appearances. And appearances deceive. I turned to my son. Observe carefully. Notice hesitation, tremble, fear behind their eyes. This is how humans reveal themselves under truth. Remember this. The room was quiet, except for the ticking clock. Each tick measured a second of realization, a second closer to humility. Then I said slowly, Tomorrow the next test begins, and I will see if character emerges from shadows of greed, arrogance, and fear. Her daughter-in-law whispered to her mother. Her father looked down, speechless. The uncles exchanged worried glances. I sat back. The first lesson was complete. But deep inside I knew the next challenge would test them harder. Because truth never stops, and patience never ends. The night fell quietly, but the tension in the house was heavy. The Rahman family sat in silence, their earlier arrogance gone. Her father avoided my gaze. Her mother clutched her daughter-in-law's hand tightly. Even the uncles were unusually quiet. I poured myself tea slowly, savoring the calm before the next wave of revelation. Tonight, I began softly, you will see not just numbers but decisions. Not just evidence but the story behind them. Her daughter-in-law shifted uneasily. Ibrahim, why show all this? She whispered. Because, I replied calmly, understanding comes only when the truth is visible. And appearances deceive. My son watched intently, remembering their disbelief from yesterday. Now he would witness their reflection in reality. I turned to her father. You assumed weakness because of silence. You assumed simplicity because of appearances. But patience has its own strength, and truth carries its own weight. Her father's face went pale. You played a game? He asked shakily. No game, I said. Life is strategy. Observation is learning. The world rewards those who endure quietly. I opened a folder with letters, investment records, and business documents. Everything here, I said, represents decades of patience and careful decision-making. Every sacrifice, every sleepless night, led to this moment. The Rahmans exchanged nervous glances. Her mother whispered, We didn't know. No, I replied. You didn't know because you judged by appearances, not reality. And appearances lie. I walked slowly around the room. Observe them, my son. Notice the hesitation, the tremble, the fear. This is how character is revealed. Not by words, not by wealth, but by patience and truth. Her father's hands shook. Her mother's eyes filled with tears. The uncles avoided my gaze. Now, I said softly, you will understand the cost of judgment, the cost of arrogance, the cost of ignoring character. I motioned toward the projector. Documents appeared, contracts, property deeds, monthly statements. Every investment, every transaction perfectly recorded. Her father whispered, all this, and we never suspected. Yes, I said, and that is the point. Wealth is meaningless without integrity. Patience teaches what arrogance cannot understand. My son stepped closer. Dad, they're seeing it now, he said. Yes, I replied. But seeing is not understanding. They must act according to the truth they now know. The room remained heavy with silence. I continued. Tomorrow the real test begins. Will they change? Will they respect character over appearances? Will they finally understand? Her daughter-in-law whispered, they need to learn humility. Yes, I said, and they will. Through observation, through reality, through consequences. I sat back. The lesson had begun. The Rahmans had started seeing themselves clearly. But the journey had just begun. Patience, truth, and silent strength would reveal everything in time. The next morning arrived quietly, but the house felt heavy. The Rahman family gathered again in the living room, their eyes wary, expressions tense. Her father's pride had dimmed, her mother's hands trembled. The uncles shifted uncomfortably. I sat calmly, letting them adjust to the weight of yesterday's revelations. Patience teaches lessons anger cannot, I said softly. Observation teaches what instruction cannot. Today you will see the consequences of your assumptions. Her father swallowed. We understand some of it, he said quietly. But how should we act now? I let the question hang. Then I stood, walking slowly around the room. Actions are the true measure of understanding. Words can lie, smiles can deceive, but actions reveal who you truly are. Her daughter-in-law looked at me cautiously. You planned all this, she whispered. Yes, I replied calmly. Years of patience, hidden observation, and quiet preparation. To see the truth emerge without anger or force. My son nodded beside me. He had seen their arrogance crumble. Now he saw their hesitation, their fear. I turned to her father. You assumed weakness where there was none. You judged simplicity as ignorance. Strength is not always loud. Power is not always visible. Her father's hands clenched and he looked down. Character cannot be bought or borrowed. It is revealed only under pressure, truth, and patience, I continued. Her mother whispered. We never realized... No, I said. You never did. Judgment by appearances is always flawed. I motioned toward the projector again. More documents appeared. Letters of investment, contracts, statements. See this, I said. Every decision, every sacrifice, every night spent planning. All to survive quietly, without vanity, without showing off. Her father's voice trembled. All this, and we never suspected. Yes, I said. And that is the lesson. Wealth alone is meaningless without patience and integrity. Understanding comes only when you observe, not assume. I turned to my son. Notice hesitation, fear, embarrassment. This is how people reveal themselves when faced with truth. The room stayed silent. The Rahmans absorbed every word, every action, every document. I sat back. The first part of understanding has begun, I said. Tomorrow, the next challenge begins, and we will see if humility and honesty have taken root. Her daughter-in-law whispered, They need to see consequences. Yes, I said softly. And they will. Through patience, through observation, through reality itself. The day ended quietly, but inside I knew. The real test had only just begun. Truth, patience, and silent strength would continue to reveal everything. And I would be there to witness it all. The next day began with quiet tension in the Rahman household. No one spoke much as they gathered in the living room. Her father avoided my eyes. Her mother fidgeted nervously. The uncles seemed more cautious than ever. I sipped my tea slowly, letting the silence sink in. Yesterday you witnessed patience and truth, I said softly. Today you will witness consequences. Not through anger, but through observation and reflection. Her daughter-in-law glanced at her mother, whispering, They still don't fully grasp it. Observation reveals more than words, I replied. And lessons are learned only when humility touches the heart. My son stood beside me, eyes wide, noticing their hesitation, their unease. He had seen their arrogance crumble yesterday. Now he saw fear, embarrassment, and a flicker of understanding. I addressed her father directly. You assumed weakness because of silence. You judged simplicity as ignorance. But strength is quiet. Power does not always announce itself. Her father's hands trembled. He looked down at the floor, ashamed. I continued. Character cannot be faked. It cannot be borrowed. It is revealed only under truth, patience, and pressure. Her mother whispered softly. We never realized... No, I said calmly. You never did because you judged appearances instead of reality. I motioned toward the projector. Documents appeared. Letters, contracts, investment records, and detailed accounts. Everything you see, I said, represents decades of planning, sacrifice, and quiet endurance. Every sleepless night, every careful decision led to this moment. Her father's voice faltered. All this, and we never suspected? Yes, I said. And that is the lesson. Money alone is meaningless without patience, wisdom, and integrity. Understanding comes only through observation, not assumptions. I turned to my son. Notice their reactions. Notice hesitation, fear, embarrassment. This is how humans reveal themselves when confronted with truth. The room stayed silent. The Rahmans absorbed every word, every action, every document. I finally sat back. The first lesson has begun, I said. Tomorrow, the next challenge will arrive. We will see if humility and honesty have taken root in their hearts. Her daughter-in-law whispered to her mother, They need to face consequences. Yes, I said softly. And they will. Through patience, through observation, through reality itself. The day ended quietly, but I knew the real test was only beginning. Truth, patience, and silent strength would continue to reveal everything, and I would be there to witness it all. Evening fell quietly, but tension lingered in the Rahman household. Her father sat slouched, avoiding my gaze. Her mother fiddled with her scarf nervously. The uncles' expressions were tense, their pride visibly shaken. I sipped my tea slowly, letting the quiet stretch. Tonight, I began, you will see how assumptions can mislead, and how truth, though silent, has weight. Her daughter-in-law whispered to her mother, They are still pretending to understand. Understanding is more than words, I replied. It is revealed through patience, reflection, and humility. My son watched closely, noting every flicker of fear, hesitation, and guilt in their eyes. Their arrogance had already crumbled, but now the weight of reality was beginning to settle in. I turned to her father. You judged silence as weakness. You judged simplicity as ignorance. But strength is quiet, and true power is invisible until revealed. Her father's hands shook. He lowered his eyes, ashamed, feeling the truth pressing down. I continued. Character is never inherited, borrowed, or faked. It is tested in reality, proven in patience, and revealed in truth. Her mother whispered softly. We never knew. No, I said calmly. You never did because you only saw appearances, not the substance beneath. I motioned to the projector. New documents appeared. Contracts, letters, investment records, property deeds. Everything here, I said, represents decades of careful decision-making, silent endurance, and sacrifice. Every sleepless night, every meticulous choice led to this moment. Her father muttered, All this, and we never suspected? Yes, I said. And that is the lesson. Money alone means nothing without wisdom, patience, and integrity. Observation and understanding must come before judgment. I turned to my son. Notice the hesitation, the fear, the embarrassment. This is how humans reveal themselves when faced with truth. The room remained silent, heavy with realization. The Rahmans absorbed each word, each gesture, each document. I finally leaned back. The first part of understanding has begun, I said. Tomorrow brings a new challenge. We will see if humility and honesty have truly taken root in their hearts. Her daughter-in-law whispered to her mother, They need to see the consequences of their arrogance. Yes, I replied softly, and they will. Through patience, through observation, through reality itself. The night closed quietly, but I knew the real test had only just begun. Truth, patience, and silent strength would continue to reveal everything. And I would be there to witness it all. The next morning arrived quietly, but the atmosphere in the Rahman household was thick with tension. Her father sat stiffly, avoiding eye contact. Her mother fidgeted with her hands, glancing nervously at everyone. The uncles exchanged uneasy glances, their earlier confidence replaced by uncertainty. I poured myself a cup of tea, letting the silence linger before speaking. Yesterday, I began slowly, you witnessed patience and truth. Today you will witness reflection and consequence. Her daughter-in-law whispered to her mother, They still don't fully understand. Understanding, I said softly, comes only when humility touches the heart. Observation reveals what words cannot. My son stood silently beside me, observing every tremor, every hesitation, every flicker of fear in their expressions. Their arrogance had already begun to crumble, but the reality of what they had assumed and judged was beginning to settle in. I addressed her father directly. You assumed weakness where there was none. You judged simplicity as ignorance. But strength is quiet. True power is not always visible until revealed. Her father's hand shook and he looked down ashamed. The truth pressed on him like a weight he could not lift. I continued, Character is not inherited, borrowed, or faked. It is tested in reality, proven through patience, and revealed in truth. Her mother whispered, We never realized... No, I said firmly. You never did because you judged appearances, not the substance beneath. I motioned toward the projector. More documents appeared. Contracts, letters, investments, and property deeds. Everything here, I said, represents decades of careful decisions, silent endurance, and sacrifice. Every sleepless night, every meticulous choice led to this moment. Her father muttered, All this, and we never suspected? Yes, I replied calmly. And that is the lesson. Wealth alone is meaningless without patience, wisdom, and integrity. Understanding must come before judgment. I turned to my son. Observe hesitation, fear, and embarrassment. This is how humans reveal themselves when faced with truth. The room remained silent. The Rahmans absorbed each word, each gesture, each document. I leaned back, letting the moment sink in. The first stage of understanding has begun, I said. Tomorrow brings the next challenge. We will see if humility and honesty have truly taken root in their hearts. Her daughter-in-law whispered to her mother, They need to face the consequences of their arrogance. Yes, I said softly, and they will. Through patience, through observation, through reality itself. The day ended quietly, but deep inside I knew the real test had only just begun. Truth, patience, and silent strength would continue to reveal everything. And I would be there to witness it all. The morning sun filtered softly through the curtains, but the house still felt heavy. The Rahman family gathered in the living room, their expressions tense, their pride diminished. Her father avoided my eyes. Her mother fidgeted nervously, glancing at her daughter-in-law. The uncle sat rigidly, aware that yesterday's arrogance had begun to crumble. I sipped my tea slowly, letting the silence stretch before I spoke. Patience, I began softly, teaches lessons anger cannot. Observation reveals what instruction cannot, and truth will always find its way, silently, but undeniably. Her daughter-in-law whispered to her mother, They still don't truly understand. Understanding, I replied calmly, comes only when humility touches the heart. It is revealed through observation, patience, and reflection. My son stood beside me, watching every flicker of hesitation, fear, and shame in their eyes. Their arrogance had begun to crumble, but the weight of truth was only now settling. I addressed her father. You assumed weakness where there was none. You judged simplicity as ignorance. But strength is quiet. True power is revealed only in patience and endurance. Her father's hands trembled and he lowered his eyes, feeling the weight of truth. I continued. Character is never inherited, borrowed, or faked. It is tested in reality, proven through patience, and revealed through truth. Her mother whispered softly. We never realized... No, I said firmly. You never did because you judged appearances instead of substance. I motioned to the projector. Documents appeared. Contracts, letters, investments, property deeds. Everything here, I said, represents decades of careful decisions, silent endurance, and sacrifice. Every sleepless night, every meticulous choice led to this moment. Her father muttered, All this, and we never suspected? Yes, I replied. And that is the lesson. Wealth alone is meaningless without patience, wisdom, and integrity. Understanding comes only through observation, not assumptions. I turned to my son. Notice their hesitation, their fear, their embarrassment. This is how humans reveal themselves when confronted with truth. The room remained silent. The Rahmans absorbed every word, gesture, and document. I leaned back, letting the moment settle. The first stage of understanding has begun, I said. Tomorrow brings the next challenge. We will see if humility and honesty have truly taken root in their hearts. Her daughter-in-law whispered to her mother, "They must face the consequences of their arrogance." "Yes," I replied softly, "and they will. Through patience, through observation, through reality itself." The day ended quietly, but I knew the real test had only just begun. Truth, patience, and silent strength would continue to reveal everything. And I would be there to witness it all.